Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Sandra. So yeah, I'm essentially want to take you through a practical example of how we, Reading Room as an agency, approach this planning for DMS. So basically, the first steps are going to take us from a standard website, and I'll touch on all of the elements that have been touched on before and drill into them a bit deeper so we can get a bit more understanding of exactly what it is that we have to do when we want to embark on this DMS journey. As an agenda, basically, so what I want to do first is dive a bit deeper into my understanding of the DMS system. So I think it's quite important that this is not a marketing, this is more of the practical side of things. So what I see the DMS system as and how it can help you. We look at what technical considerations need to be taken to implement it. We then move into the sort of first phase, which is the analyze. And essentially what we're trying to do here is evaluate the business as it stands at the moment, where you are, and what we need to do to get you into the DMS system. One of the major parts of this analysis phase is the scoping workshop. And this is something that I work on very hard with my clients because, as Sandra mentioned, this really is what sets the foundation for how we're going to implement DMS going forward. We'll then do a practical example. We'll actually look at Office Core, which some of you may be, you may know already. So this is the demo system that Sitecore use, and we're going to practically run through that workshop and map some of the objectives in there. I'll then discuss the next steps, which is how we're going to progress further on in the day. And then if there's any time, we can have any questions, which we may actually cover in the roundtable Q&A afterwards, so we might skip that at this point. So without any further ado then, I'll jump into the actual DMS system, or at least the way I see it. So before I explain to you what the DMS system is, I think maybe it's good for me to explain to you what it isn't. So what the DMS system isn't is a magic on-off switch. You know, it's not something whereby you just go into the system, flick the switch, walk away, and all this magic happens behind the scenes. So again, as has been mentioned, what you put in is what you get out. So really, the devil is in the detail here, and how we plan to implement this DMS is really going to affect the results we can reap as we go forward. So this is why all of these systems are in place, and this is why the scoping workshop exists, is because if we really drill down to the nitty-gritty, to the nuts and bolts of what make the organization work, how we're going to meet these technically, that gives us a really good system to work on. So what it is, well, in Sitecore's words, the digital marketing system is a set of marketing tools built into Sitecore that allows partners and clients to promote, optimize, test, and track the performance of content on their websites using a qualitative metric called engagement value. So that's all great. That's the marketing words. A couple of things there jump out to me, and these are the couple of things that I really want to focus on. So a set of tools. It's really important that we understand that it is a collection of elements. It is not one big system where everything has to be done at one stage. And this is basically what I'm going to get at when I'm talking about the maturity model. All of these things allude to this point that it is a set of tools. Another thing that is very, very important here for me is the qualitative metric. So, as already been alluded to, analytics really is what drives DMS. The more we know about people, the more we can serve content to them, the more we can be relevant. So it's really important that we define what we want to know, when we want to know it, and how we're then going to use that to play it back to the customer. So those, to me, out of those sentences are the two major and key facts. So to drill a bit deeper into the powerful set of tools. So again, as has been alluded to, Sitecore, the DMS system is made up of these various different elements, 11 in total, and all of these elements combined to form the system. But when we go through these scoping workshops and work with the clients and understand what their needs are, it is our job to figure out which one of those are going to best serve your needs. Okay, so this is not something that you have to figure out on your own. It's not something that you have to come and say, we want to do this, we want to do that. What we need to understand is what the business objectives are, and we should be coming back to you with a plan to say, right, in order to achieve this, we're going to use this. In order to achieve that, we're going to use that, or a combination of these elements. So if I run through them and just explain a little bit more in depth about what each one of these does. So goals and engagement values. So really this is the first step into DMS, and this is really what we're going to focus on today. So A bit later on in the program, we'll be looking at how we get to these goals and then how we use these goals to create the engagement value scale, which really is the foundation of DMS. So the whole concept of this engagement value is to understand how much that person is interacting with their website and then how much engagement value that is creating. So there's no point saying, oh, someone's been on our site for 10 minutes, which is great. Were they on your site for 10 minutes interacting with your content, or were they lost? So it's a really good metric to find out how engaged and how active they are. So that really is the foundation. And we do that right, all of these other elements kind of flow very nicely from that. So setting the foundation is really important. These engagement analytics then are what is captured off the back of these. So by setting up all the goals and having all the values programmed in properly, we can then start tracking how this value is affecting our site, how it's affecting our strategies, and how it is feeding into our ultimate goals of what we want to achieve with a website. Moving a bit further in then, we've got campaign management, so you can start aligning information you're sending out to clients, both online and offline as you get further on, but you can start managing those campaigns within the Sitecore module. And again, this is what Anthony alluded to, is about creating one place where all your information is kept. This single customer view is really the most powerful tool you have to give people relevant information. So you want to know what kind of interactions you're having with people so that can affect what they see when they come to your website. Rules-based personalization. So this is the first step into personalization and what I like to call explicit personalization. So effectively, what I'm talking about here is people are giving us a bit of information, and in relation to that information, we are serving them content. So be there, someone hits your website, and because of geolocation, you know where they're coming from. If you have global messages and they are coming to you from the US, you'll serve up a US message as opposed to a UK message. Things like that, the small touches. So when an explicit bit of information is known, we are able to write rules into the system that can then serve up content that is targeted specifically to that bit of information. You can then get into testing, where you can start testing different versions of the page, different types of titles, headings, even the layout of the page can change in these. And the system is actually intelligent enough to be able to pick up which one is the most popular over a set amount of time and promote that. And so you can then always make sure that you're getting the right message to the people, or the message to the people that they're actually wanting to read. Personas and profiling is really now starting to move into the more deeper functionality of the DMS. And this is really where we're starting to create that personal journey. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make the site understand who we're speaking to. So what we're doing is we're creating these personas or user segments, visitor segments within the site. And that way we can start segmenting out what type of content we have. So when we create a user segment, what we also do is profile our content based on that and say this bit of content is more relevant to this segment of our audience, whereas this bit of content is not relevant to them at all. By doing this, the site can now intelligently start understanding who our visitors are through behavioral profiling and serve up relevant content without you guys having to go to every single page, to every single lightbox and say, this needs to have this, this needs to have that. That is all dynamically done. And this sort of leads us directly into predictive personalization. So when the system understands who the users are and the system understands what kind of content they're going to need to be looking at, we can predict through how they're browsing on the website, what kind of pages they go to, what sections they go to, what information is going to be relevant to them. So this really is what I call implicit personalization. So we are implying that we know the people based on their browsing behaviors. Engagement automating, so some of you may use engagement automation systems externally already. Some of you may have dabbled into this. But basically what this allows us to do is create workflows and say, based on X criteria, so for example, if someone's got to a certain amount of engagement analytic points, we want to show them this message, or we want to send them this email, or we want to notify our salesperson that this is someone who's reading a lot of white papers or really engaging with us. Or maybe even it's entering a record into the CRM system to say, this is a prospect, they need to be contacted. Which leads us into the sort of email campaigning. So the system itself, DMS, has got a built-in email system called the ECM, which will actually allow you to replicate a lot of the information that you have on the website directly into mails and send them out, all automatically. So you don't have to have another disparate system, or have a list here in your CRM system and then go into the email system and put the list in there. And then someone has to copy the text from one system into the next system with a list from somewhere else. So it really is, again, trying to bring everything under one roof and give you one single point of entry to communicate with your customers. And this really helps with the message as well. So if you're sending one consistent message from one platform, it's really going to enable you to fulfill your strategies. So sales enablement and CRM integration, this is really starting to get to the very high end now. So what we're talking about is this one customer view. So we have CRM interacting with the CMS, and effectively what we have is this cross-pollination of information. So for example, I meet one of you here today, an offline event. I get back to the office, I put into the our CRM system, I met with Dave today. Dave was very interested in DMS implementation, and all that information exists. When Dave goes to our website and logs in, the system now knows that Dave has had this conversation about DMS and starts surfacing information about that. So it's a really powerful tool once you get further up. And ultimately what this then does is allow you to have this cross-channel presence. So when you're engaging with people and that information is being captured, we can now use that on the web, on the mobile, in your marketing messages, whatever's going out. So a very quick understanding of all of these elements is probably as far as we'll go for today, but it is very clear to see that it is a very, very powerful tool. And this is specifically why we've said it's best to start small. It's best to understand what is the core requirement and start working on that. And specifically because of this reason is why Sitecore have created the maturity model. So again, this is just another version. This is something that has been growing as the product itself has been growing. But effectively, what this is doing is chunking up all of those various different elements into bite-sized steps which enable you to walk up this ladder to digital maturity. So what we don't want to do is rush in and try and start CRM integration and having all this offline, online, linking up and sending up messages when we're not even understanding who our clients are or whether what we need to do on the website. So what we do is we use this model to understand where our clients are. And I'll run through this in a second, a bit later in the presentation, when there's a tool that enables us to look at this and to understand where we are and where we want to go. So, starting at the bottom, when we're talking about having a brochure site. Maybe you send some marketing emails through a third-party email system. You might start to be thinking about mobile sites. And then you start moving up, so optimization. You're really starting to look at optimizing your website, using information that you have in the analytics engine to engage your visitors more, all the way up to lifetime customers, where we're really starting to, we integrated with a CRM system, we're starting to pull information back and forth, and we're really having that one-to-one dialogue with our clients. So I'll talk you through how this works and how we get to where we're at, and then build that out into the next steps. So the methodology for deploying DMS, and this is something that we use. So where we are today, or what we're talking about today at least, is this analyze phase. So what we need to do is we need to understand the business, and I cannot stress this enough. To understand what it is that we're trying to achieve on the website is paramount to really getting the most out of the DMS system. The more we understand, the better we can devise a strategy of implementation, and the better results we can get. So what we'll run through today, and when we look at the next couple of slides, is how we analyze the business, what tools we use to get the information from you so that we can come back to you with a plan. And that is the next step. So designing. So what we do then is we take all of this information, we collate it, and we come back to you and say, this is your design, this is your maturity model, this is how we're going to take you from initiate, radiate, all the way up to lifetime customers. If, in fact, that is your goal. It may not be your goal to integrate with a CRM system or have all of that functionality. So we will have to figure out with you exactly where you lie on that and where you want to end up. Once we've designed that, obviously we then go into a build. We'll put that in a test system. We'll test all the functionality. We'll make sure it works. And once that works, we'll deploy it onto your live system. And that's when we can start gathering all the analytics. So with the analytics on and the system deployed, we're now getting real-time information back from the visitors of your site based on this strategy that we've implemented. And what that helps us do is then optimize. So, sometimes you get things right, sometimes you don't quite get it right. You know, how you think your users are going to behave when they come to the website might not necessarily be how they behave when they arrive there. So what you do is you use this analytics and you use these metrics to refine and to optimize what you've implemented. Once you've done that and you've nailed the first section, you then analyze again. So what we're analyzing now is the second step of your maturity model. What's the next bit of technology that you want to use or functionality you want to use to get more people on board, to be more effective on your website? And you go through the whole process again. And that just continues until you get to the end of where you want to be, and all of the elements that you're wanting to deploy are done. But all the time, what we're doing there is increasing the ROI generation of your site. So what we're ensuring then is that all the time we're listening to what the users are doing. We're not just force-feeding information out there. We're putting something out there. We're taking a small step. We're stepping back. We're getting the analytics. We're reviewing what we've done. We move on. OK, so before you do embark on this DMS implementation, there are some technical considerations that need to be taken. So a couple of things that really do affect whether or not you can start on this is the Sitecore version that you have. So it's imperative that you're on version 6.6 or above. So anyone who isn't on that will have to do the upgrade process to get onto a level whereby the DMS can be implemented. There's also some licensing considerations, so it's just good to understand what version of Sitecore you're on and whether the DMS is part of your licensing. So that's something you need to think about. Another thing to think about is the infrastructure. So we've been talking about big data, we've been talking about collection and all of this stuff. So all of this has an impact on your service. So obviously now with the release of 7.5 and MongoDB, we've got a lot more speed. But if you're on an older version and you are using the SQL model, that is something that definitely needs to be thought about. If you just all of a sudden switch on DMS and you start collating masses of data into your master database, you're going to see a performance hit on your website. So it's something that really needs to be thought about, is how you're going to cope with this influx of data. Where is it going to be stored? How is it going to be managed? So it's not a big thing. If you have a separate database, a second section, or if your database has loads of capacity, it's just thinking about that up front and not just, as I say, switching it on and hoping for the best. And then obviously, the ultimate consideration is the analytics database. There is no DMS without analytics, so that is the first step. A couple of other considerations. So again, as Sarah touched on, there are some resource considerations. And I think, again, this is not a scare tactic or something, but it's just pragmatic and reasonable to understand that if you're going to start moving through this maturity model and you're going to start implementing CRM integrations, you're going to have loads of data that you're going to be getting back. If you've got a team of one who's writing all of your content, it's not going to be manageable. So it's just something worth thinking about. Now, I know Reading Room is a partner. This is a service we offer. We manage this DMS. We roll it out. We make sure that we have gates whereby we analyze the data, we feed back on what needs to be changed. But if this is something that needs to be done in-house, you need to be thinking about the resources that you have available or might need in order to get the most out of the DMS system. An archive strategy, so again, obviously we're collecting all of this big data. Do we want to keep it all in one place? Do we want to hive off the old stuff and just keep the latest information? Security, again, is another consideration. It's just about making sure that the right people have access to the right bit of the system. Obviously, if you have a big content team and you don't want a junior editor making big sweeping changes to DMS rules. And finally then, it's just a bit of good practice is to make sure that we're separating the static and the dynamic content. So just having different containers, and that helps with the security as well. Okay, so moving then into analyze. So the first steps, what is it that we need to consider to get us going on the DMS system? So thankfully, and thanks to Sitecore, there are a lot of resources out there that help us to get this information. So this is not something new. This is not a punt in the dark. This is something that me personally I do day to day. This is my job, and I use these tools every time to get this information. So we've got things like the readiness assessment, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll run through that. We've got the maturity assessment, which is basically going to inform us as to where you lie on the current maturity model, which is probably what is outside. It's a fun tool. It's quite nice to play with. You get a nice spider graph at the end of it. And the scoping workshop. So this is going to form really the crux of what we're trying to get at today. So the readiness assessment, as I said, is a spreadsheet. It's fairly straightforward, but what it really does start doing is giving us some insights as to where the business currently lies from a digital perspective. So what we're starting to look at is how many page views does your site currently have? What performance do you currently have? How is it performing? How much storage space do you have? What are the databases you're using? What are their limitations? So this is starting to think already about that database size and how it's going to affect if we enable DMS. What upgrades you've applied to the site, what license you currently have, where you are in your development cycle, any configurational changes you might have made to the system already, elements like that. So this is really at very top level. It's not something that requires a big technical team to go through. This is something your partner should run with you fairly quickly, and it really gives us the basis for the next steps. When we look at the maturity assessment, and as I said, this is probably what's outside, it's a lot more fun because we get things like this, and I don't know if that pleases you. It does please me greatly. I enjoy doing that. But what we start looking at here is what you are currently doing in your business that exists within the DMS system. So we're evaluating, so we understand that some people might come from different platforms, may have legacy systems, may have alternative methods of doing some of the elements that DMS do and wanting to start bringing it into a single platform. But what we're looking at is what web analytics are you currently using? Do you have any predictive analytics? What are you doing any testing? Do you have an email marketing system? Are you doing any marketing automation, things like Marketo and things like that? Do you have any campaign management? Are you profiling your content? Is your content tagged relevancy to certain personas or audience groups? Do you have any personalization strategies, or have you implemented any personalization in any other way on your website? Are you integrated with social? Or, in fact, a CRM system? So it's a bit longer than that, obviously, but this is the kind of information that we're trying to get to figure out where you are. And this is actually one I did for a client before, and you can see they were mainly in Initiate. They had some elements of Radiate and 1 or 2 in Align, and the rest was basically dead. So it was quite clear that they were very early on in the journey, and what we really wanted to do was push out that Radiate and push out Align in the next steps. Okay, so the scoping workshop. So this, as I mentioned, is really the heart of what I want to talk to today. And this is a really, really good exercise because I find it really brings the team together and it really focuses everyone on the ultimate goal, and that is to define what the website goals are. So the steps here really is to look at what the overall business objectives are, then tying to that what the marketing objectives are, and finally, to support those, what the digital goals are. And ultimately, what we're trying to achieve here is create a metric so we can have measurable results. So what we're defining here is basically the KPIs. What are we looking to achieve? So a good example of this, and this is effectively what we're trying to create, is we're trying to create this hierarchy of strategic themes, strategic objectives, marketing objectives, and then ultimately marketing goals. So strategic themes, what we're looking for here is basically, what is it that you want to stand out about your company? What is your unique element? What is the essence of your company? So, for example, in this instance, customer intimacy for this customer was the ultimate goal. This is what they wanted to create. They wanted to have that kind of feeling of, they really know their customers. They know who they're speaking to. So based off of that, then they needed the strategic objectives that would help, create that atmosphere. So their strategic objectives in this case were to create the customer loyalty and then to get a bigger share of the customer wallet. So revenue generation and also, connecting with their people. So those two are very top-level business elements. But where the marketing people start coming in is they now feed into those strategic objectives. So in order to create customer loyalty, they want to have loyalty club acquisitions, and they also want to make sure that people are using the loyalty card. So those are the marketing functions, basically. They needed to do that. And then to increase the wallet share, they wanted to increase the cross-sell opportunities. So make sure that, if someone lands on one page, we're not just showing them what that page has. What we're doing is showing them what that page has, and also all of the other offerings that we have that are relevant to them. So finally then, and the meat of this is really the online goals. So this is what you have to program on your website to enable those marketing objectives. So In order to get more loyalty club acquisitions, you know, they're going to have an online tour. They're going to actually show the benefits of why you should become a member. Make it clear that you should be signing up. You should be part of this club. And then also driving the customer club sign-ups. You know, making sure people use it, so point-of-sale buys, online buys, so making sure that there's offers everywhere, you know, easy access for people to be able to use that loyalty club. And then again, cross-selling and making sure that that's available at every point. So that is, in effect, what we're trying to create. And what we'll do now is use Office Core as an example. And this is, again, something Sarah had up on her slides. So Office Core, for those of you who don't know, is a fictional company that is using the Sitecore demo system. And I'm sure you'll see this a bit later when Anthony takes you through creating of goals. It focuses on office supplies and holiday products. But for the sake of this presentation, what I'm going to focus on is the holiday side of things. And as I mentioned before, so the premise here is ultimately to define the website goals. We want to know what actions we need to create on the website that are going to help us fulfill our strategic themes. So we will then take these goals, and then later on in the day, we will use them to create this engagement value scale, and we'll program into the system so that we can then track engagement, so we know how engaged people are with our website and with our content. And that is then ultimately used for reporting and optimization. Okay, so strategic themes, as I touched on. So effectively, strategic themes are something that, you know, defines your business, what makes you unique. And I think one of the most important things to understand here is that, you know, what you don't want is 10 strategic themes. Effectively, if you've got 10 strategic themes, it's going to be very hard to give a clear message on your website as to exactly what it is you're trying to offer the customer. So successful companies, you know, 1, 2, 3 strategic themes at a very top level. For Office Core, so we sat down and we had to think about how we wanted to, what for them was the ultimate goal. What do they really want to get out there? And what we came up with was they wanted to be the number one destination for innovative holiday products. Okay, so when you think of holiday products, you want to be thinking about Office Core. That's where you want to go. That is their strategic theme. That is their ultimate goal. So what we need to do then is we need to say, okay, so that's our goal. How strategically are we going to make that happen? What do we need to do? What activities need to happen so that we are considered the number one place for holiday products? So these objectives then are what are used to ensure that we are hitting our strategic theme. What are going to make success? So what we want to do is we want to increase our brand awareness. We want to attract new people to our website. We want to make sure that people who are looking for innovative holiday products are coming to Office Core. We then want to convert those people. So we want to give them clear calls to action. We want to give them, you know, an easy access website whereby we can convert those people who are just coming to look to people who are coming to buy. And then ultimately, once they have bought from us, we want to create advocates. We want those people to go out and say, oh, you've got to try this Office Core website. It's fantastic. It's got all the products you need, so easy to use, understands what I'm looking for, gives me what I need, when I need it. So these are the key strategic objectives that are going to feed into that and make, you know, Office Core be the number one. We then look at marketing objectives. So this is where the marketing department start coming into play. So what do the marketing department need to do to make sure that we hit those strategic objectives? So we've come up with these 9 marketing objectives to feed directly into those. So in order for people to hit those strategic objectives, what we want people to do is interact with our key content. We want people to sign up to our newsletters. We need to grow the number of information requests. We need to increase the product detail download. So that means people are interacting. People are not just coming and going. People are coming, they want to know more about the product. They're downloading information. They're interacting with our websites. We want to increase purchases, so don't just buy one product. You know, let's cross-sell, let's optimize. Maximize opt-in for email. So creating advocates, people who want to know what we want to say. People are signing up for our newsletters. Increase social shares. Again, great advocacy. People are telling other people on the World Wide Web, you know, interact with Office Core. It's a great place. You know, they have all the things you need. Positive reviews. Again, advocacy and exposure of industry. So once you're out there and your message is being purveyed, how can you maintain that? How can you keep people coming back? And finally then, the digital goals. So the digital goals, as I said, are physical actions that we are going to program into the website that are going to help us achieve those marketing objectives. So there's a load of different types of goals that you have. You can have transactional goals. Where basically you have two-way communication. So, you know, we're giving you some information, you giving us some information. We have one-way communication whereby you give us your email address, we'll give you a PDF download. And then we have sort of more collective goals whereby people are fulfilling a number of actions in order to fulfill a goal. So for Office Core, so we came up, what we want people to do is we want them to view product videos. We want them to sign up to the newsletter. We want them to submit forms. We want them to download PDFs and complete purchases. We want them to sign up for the newsletter. We want them to leave positive reviews. We want them to click the social links, and we want them to purchase. So you can see there's some duplication of actual web goals, and that is because different or the same goal can trigger off different elements of the strategy. So what we can say is to create advocacy, we want people to buy more, but also if we want to create more revenue, we want people to buy more. So it doesn't have to be one single goal. So the way this then pans out is at the very top, we've got the strategic theme, so be the #1 for holiday products. Feeding into that, we have the objectives, which we want to attract, convert, and advocate. Feeding into that then, we have the marketing objectives, which ultimately drive those. And then finally, we have the website goals. So the great thing about this is that it really focuses the mind and gives us a very clear indication of what we're trying to achieve. So when we start ending up with goals on the website that don't directly feed into any strategic theme or marketing objective or even the strategic theme at the top, you know, either we've missed a strategic theme or the goal is not required. So it really gives us a very good indication of where the business is at, what we're trying to achieve, and making sure that all of the goals are relevant, because it's very easy to start coming up with hundreds and hundreds of goals, and most of them aren't going to drive any greater good. So this really is a good way of truncating that process and making sure that we have very relevant goals so that we can then track those and we can measure those to create a better website. Okay, so once we have all of this information, the next steps then is to take that information and then program into the system. So that's when we start moving into the actual build phase. But as a checklist of all the things that you need to do when going through the DMS planning, so I always recommend do the readiness assessment. Find out exactly where you are, which elements you're using. Then the maturity assessment, something you can play with outside, and also something you should do with your partner. Assess which elements you're currently using, which elements you're touching on, and where you want to branch out to. And then you need to define your organizational strategic themes, the objectives, the marketing objectives, and ultimately the web goals, which is something that we do within the scoping workshop. So once you've done those three elements, you should be in a very good place to be able to come up with the recommendations for how you should be implementing DMS and which elements you should be using. So the next steps, I think we're going to a short break after my talk. But in the next steps, what we do is the team are going to take you through using those goals to set up the engagement value scale. And as I said, this is really what underpins the DMS. So understanding the value of a user's visit. Setting up the goals in Sitecore, so Anthony will take you through that. And then finally, how we can use those to start measuring an analysis in the actual Sitecore analysis system. So I don't know if we have any time for Q&A. It's probably something that we want to leave to the end, but if there's any burning questions, I'm happy to take them now or afterwards.
Yeah, if people have got any questions that are fresh in their mind at the moment, that'll be, then ask them now. If not, we'll take about a half-hour break, have a chat amongst yourselves. I think that's set a perfect foundation for what the rest of the day is going to offer. So after the break, as Jonathan says, it's really going to dive into the nuts and bolts of setting up some of the early stages that John mentioned. So it's set a perfect foundation for the rest. So if there's no questions, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take half-hour comfort. There's coffee and tea and drinks just outside, and then we'll come back in and get stuck into the rest of the DMS Kickstart. Thank you.